volunteer managers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to our Volunteer Management Network 2024. I'm Esther from Impact, and having been a volunteer manager previously, I'm really honored to be your MC for today. And this special occasion, we are celebrating it in conjunction with the International Volunteer Managers Day, which is IVMD for short. Themed Sustainable Volunteerism, Creating, Enhancing, and Measuring Volunteer Impact, today's session seeks to share insights on strategic volunteer management for sustainable impact and growth, and is held in conjunction with IVMD, International Volunteer Managers Day. It's a month-long campaign in November to celebrate and recognize the crucial role that our volunteer managers play in being the catalysts and change makers for sustainable volunteerism. So we have an exciting lineup of events planned for you this Friday, including the appointment and reappointment of our volunteer managers, and also the launch of the Volunteer Impact Measurement Kit. But beyond that, everybody, it's an opportunity for you to connect with one another, to learn on the best practices of volunteer practices, and also to share stories of impactful volunteer programs. Most importantly, we want you to leave this place creating lasting memories. So let's make the most of today. To kick off today's program, join me in watching a short video titled Beacon. It is directed by award-winning director Daniel Yam on a pro bono basis that highlights the importance of volunteer managers in our society. He is also the man behind Community Chair's viral video, Ripple. Let's sit back and enjoy.
Uncle Paul.
Hello, Uncle Paul. This is Natalie, our new volunteer manager. I'm bringing her around today to meet all of the seniors.
Hello.
Can we get volunteers in to engage these seniors?
Yes, let's do that. Hi, good afternoon. I'm looking to find some volunteers to run activities for seniors. Do you think you could help rally some volunteers together? Uncle Paul. Hello? Oh, no worries. It's okay. Thanks for letting us know. Next time, maybe? Uncle Paul, here you go. One more time. Go for it. Darling.
Mommy, are you coming home soon?
Yes, Mommy's coming home already. See you soon, okay? Bye-bye.
Sure, we'll be happy to rally our volunteers.
Thank you so much. This means so much to our seniors.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, see you. Bye-bye.
Yes!
Would you like to join them, Uncle Paul? Uncle Paul, you represented Singapore?
Well, that's 40 years ago. Of all the medals and trophies I have, this one means the most to me. The volunteers are appreciated today. This is for you.
What's MVP?
Yes, indeed, we hope you enjoyed the video, which highlights the importance of our volunteer managers. Truly, they are beacons in our society, bringing light into the lives of both our service users and our volunteers. So following Minister's announcement of the Volunteer Impact Measurement Kit, I would like to provide some additional information to everyone. This kit aims to support volunteer managers to assess and demonstrate the impact that volunteerism brings to their volunteers, service users, agencies, and partners. It does so through a data-driven approach that provides outcome indicators, which SSAs may consider including in their volunteer management systems for tracking and reporting of their impact. By using common metrics, this facilitates alignment in the 3P collaborations that take place widely today. The Volunteer Impact Measurement Kit was developed through the review of existing research and extensive consultations with key stakeholders, such as SSAs, government agencies, and funders in the volunteerism ecosystem. From the pre-survey responses, we understand that close to 60% of you have yet to implement a framework to assess volunteer impact on the community. The common reasons being a lack of time, resources, skills, and knowledge. So to support our learning today, we have invited 3 panelists to share their experiences and insights on volunteer impact measurement in their organizations. Each panelist will have up to 10 minutes to share their experiences and knowledge before we convene for a panel discussion for Q&A. So first up, we have Ms. Sandra Leong, CEO at Equal, an SSA which focuses on improving the socio-emotional and mental well-being of persons in need through animal therapy, in particular horse therapy. Sandra has served in the social service sector for the last 10 years in healthcare and women-related organizations, including Viva Foundation, Breast Cancer Foundation, and Girl Guides Singapore. Equal was also among the participating SSAs that were involved in the development journey of the Volunteer Impact Measurement Kit. So without further ado, Sandra, please.
Good morning, everyone. Imagine us putting a cart before our horse. I think that was how Equal was like before we embarked on our volunteer impact measurement journey. Today I'm here this morning to share with you how going on the impact measurement journey has actually helped to transform the way we see volunteers. For Equal, we focus very much on the social, emotional, and mental well-being of persons in need. And we do this through animal therapy to achieve what we call an impact, transforming a person from within. We believe that when humans and animals interact, there can be a transformation from within, creating an impact in a person, and also impact upon communities. Our goal is really this, to really make animal therapy affordable and accessible for all in Singapore. The groups that we serve include children through social emotional development, youth, inspiring them and supporting at-risk youth, and also seniors, bringing care and companionship to seniors. Over here in this picture with a senior, you can see one of our horses called Sayang actually visiting a senior in a nursing home. A few good men and women is how I would describe our volunteers today. I think we have a very steady and small pool of volunteers who have been journeying with us all this while, and they have been very, very dedicated. Over here we have people like Chong Hin, who is actually a MD of a water tech firm, but he comes down every Saturday to help, take care of the horses. We have Sing Ching, who's also, in the public service, but who commits her time to equal. And then we have Emma. Emma is somebody that we can call, to do like photography, to do artwork, to help us to lead groups. But I would say that among all our volunteers, the group that really touches our heart are special volunteers. I think it always moves us to see, volunteers like Leanne, as well as Kotaro, joining us, serving other people, being empowered to serve others in need. Kotaro here actually comes to our stable every morning, Monday to Friday. He spends a good 1 to 2 hours with us before going back home. We've become part of his routine. Leanne is the sweetest volunteer that we can ever have. She writes a lot of notes to all our colleagues, encouraging us, and also joining in our programs whenever she can. Why we embarked on the volunteer impact journey? Okay, you all need to watch out for all my horse puns. There's going to be a lot of horse puns. Why we embarked on the volunteer impact journey was really this. We really wanted to grow a few good men and women into a much bigger group. We realized that even though they come through our doors, come to our stable, do so much for us, we may not exactly know in depth, why, the reasons why they want to journey with us. And being a team of 33 people with very limited funding, we were very cognizant that the only way for us to grow and scale is actually through volunteers. One thing that we realized through the interviews and through the surveys was this, that those who interact with our horses actually felt that it had a therapeutic effect on them. In the case of this volunteer, she said, recently my mom felt ill and her workload has increased. She was overwhelmed and stressed, but being close to the horses actually helped her to calm down, relax, and feel more peaceful. So for those of you who may not know the science behind horses, the heart of a horse is the size of a football, this size. And the size of our human heart is the size of our fist, this size. What this means is that there's a lot of the heart of the horse actually has a very large electromagnetic field, which actually helps to calm down and slow down our heart rate whenever we are close to a horse. So we have actually volunteers who have anxiety, who have panic disorder, but they enjoy coming to our stable to interact with our horses, to take care of our horses, and also to join programs because they feel that it has a calming effect on them. Through the data gathered through the volunteer impact measurement, it tells us that the psychological well-being of our volunteers has increased substantially due to the volunteering experience. And this actually made us rethink and think through how we wanted to do our programs, such that the programs can actually help both beneficiaries and volunteers at the same time. Yeah, so we're putting up a proposal for the President's Challenge. So whoever that's in the room that's approving, please approve. And one commonality that we discovered when we interviewed and did focus group discussions with all our volunteers was this, that a lot of them felt that volunteering with Equal was a form of self-care. And I think that was a revelation that we kind of suspected, but we didn't know for sure. They felt that coming down to Equal had a grounding and centering, had a humbling effect on them, and therefore they wanted to be part of it. It was also, of course, a good physical workout, and they felt that it was also their way of being close to animals. It was a form of animal care, and through that, some of them may only be able to come down in the weekends to help to clean up the stables, take care of the horses. They may not be able to journey with us when we do our programs on the weekdays, but they feel that by taking care of the horses for us, they actually enable us to do our community programs better. So we call this like the triple ripple effect. Our data also tells us that volunteering has increased our volunteers' capacity to learn and grow. I think what we discovered in all our sessions is that the volunteers actually want to know more. They ask more questions about what's animal therapy. They want to know more about horses. Why does horses, help humans? And so our super volunteer manager, Melissa, over there, Melissa, wave. She does a brilliant job at briefing all our volunteers. and bringing them through a whole journey. So it's not so much about volunteers coming in and, okay, get to work, but rather volunteers coming in, understanding what is it that we're doing, imparting to them the knowledge. She does things like, putting them on wheelchairs and letting them have a feel of what is it like before we actually serve the seniors. She discovered, through, the corporate, especially the corporate groups that we serve, that only 20% of the volunteers actually knew how to handle somebody who is aged or senior. And so she incorporated tips on how to actually, how to actually help them. And so these volunteers actually go back with greater knowledge, deeper knowledge. It also helped us to get internal buy-in from our own team. I must say that, before we started this journey, our team was very reluctant, also very resistant towards having more volunteers, because a lot of us are very attached to the horses. We're not too sure who we can trust to actually handle the horses. So there was a lot of, I would say, reluctance and resistance. But one thing that the study enabled us to do, and our team actually discovered that volunteers actually helped to share load with them. And when the volunteers helped to share load, we were able to actually deliver a better service, a greater impact with lesser time pressure. So imagine when we bring our horses into the wards. So we bring the horses into a ward in the nursing home. And we can only bring, usually we bring only 2 miniature horses out for one session. We can only bring the horse from one bed to the other, take turns, right? So having more volunteers with us actually allows the volunteers to go ahead to prep, the other seniors, the bed-bound seniors, and getting them all excited, chat with them, how was your day, before our horses actually go around. Rather, and because of that, we're able to spend more dedicated time with each volunteer and make an impact. So one thing that we really realized that sustainable volunteerism is really this, that we need to add value to our volunteers. And through that, then our volunteers will add value to our beneficiaries. And this is how we feel that the volunteer impact measurement has really, really helped us. Mel came up with this, is our easy approach, because I think measuring impact, of our volunteers can be quite tricky, and she needed to actually integrate it into the practices that we do. And so she came up with an easy approach. Doing our surveys and all that in a fuss-free way, accessibility, using QR codes, technologies such that they can fill up the forms easily, shared values, really talking to them, understanding what their shared values, and really putting them at the forefront of what we are doing. I want to end off by sharing a little story. About 30 years ago, when I was in secondary school, okay, don't try to calculate. My grandma was diagnosed with cancer of the pancreas, stage 4. And it was school holidays, and I had the opportunity to actually journey with her very closely in her last days. Almost every day, there were 2 volunteers from RCC Hospice that will come to help to, change her, clear her soil bedding, put her in fresh clothes, teach us how to actually, take care of her. And I think, when I saw them at work and doing all the things that they were doing, it really felt like to me seeing 2 angels at work on earth. And it was at that point of time that I decided, when I grow up, I want to be a volunteer. And I think that's the thing about volunteers. I think the impact that our volunteers do or give sometimes go beyond the roles and the tasks that we assign to them, the impact that they make. And I do think that it's our duty to really understand them deeply, to provide them with the most enriching experience they can have as a volunteer so that they can continue to enrich us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra, for your insightful sharing on how SSAs can measure volunteer impact. And also thank you for trusting us with your personal story. Next, we have Ms. Allinda Chew, Assistant Manager from the Volunteer and Community Engagement Team at Care Corner, an SSA that provides a continuum of integrated care for individuals as they transition through different life stages. Allinda oversees the SG Cares Volunteer Centre, operated by Care Corner at Tampines, Toa Payoh, and Woodlands Town. Her journey began with training youths to carry out community service, and it further deepened to volunteers of all walks of life when she joined Care Corner. Care Corner was also among the participating SSAs that were part of the development journey of the Volunteer Impact Measurement Kit. So Allinda, please.
Good morning, everyone. Morning. Good morning, Minister Masagos, fellow colleagues, and also to everybody. My name is Allinda, and I'm from Care Corner Singapore. So before I start today, I just want to say a big thank you to NCSS, Priscilla for the invitation, and also to Care Corner management, Gary and team, for the opportunity for Care Corner to be here to share about our volunteer impact assessment journey with everyone. So to give a quick introduction about Care Corner Singapore, our vision is to bring care to every corner in Singapore, and that's through building hope and promoting well-being in the individuals and families that we serve through the social and healthcare services that we bring. And currently, we have 49 service points island-wide. And in FY 2023, we managed about 7,700 volunteers in Care Corner. But we didn't always start this way. So as we grew bigger, we recognized the importance of actually measuring impact and communicating that to our stakeholders involved. And with that, we are very happy that we got a chance to embark on the Volunteer Management Consultancy Development Project, so otherwise also known as a VMCD, which I think some of you in this room will also know about that. And in this project this year, a highlight for us was to be able to take part in the Volunteer Impact Framework pilot phase. What stood out for us in this framework was this clear outcome indicators that we could use as we looked at our programs that we wanted to review. It provided us a more structured process of starting our reviews together. I will show our learnings from our volunteer VMCD journey, and then I will illustrate with an example that through this process. We have a few programs internally that we actually wanted to review. So across 3 programs, today I'm going to illustrate one of them to you. And this program, I think in the community, maybe we have heard it before. And so we thought that, it's time for us to actually review this together. So this program is Neighbour Cares. And in Care Corner, we've been running this for about 4 years now. And with our corporate partner, we thought that we wanted to understand how the corporate volunteers as well as our service users are being impacted through this program. And in this through this program, we wanted to find out from our volunteers whether their positive volunteering experience will actually help to increase their personal willingness to volunteer, as well as whether they understand the needs of the community better. For our service users, it was simple, right? It's being part of this program. It's a senior befriending program whereby we wanted to address social isolation. We wanted to know if being part of this program and their perceived social support has actually grown, and that whether this program has met its objective. And last but not least, for our partners, we were keen to find out to see whether when a volunteer joined in as part of the organization ESG initiative, that in that connection with other fellow members from the corporate, will they actually increase in their connection also with the organization? So this led us to conduct surveys with our volunteers at the end of the program. At the same time, we realized that collecting data from volunteers is not that difficult, but it can be a challenge with our seniors. What we did was we actually tapped on the strengths of the volunteers and volunteer leaders who are doing their door knocking and befriending visits with the seniors on a weekly basis. And we gave these surveys to them. We translated it into Chinese as well, so that the questions are easy for them to carry out and to ask questions. So our volunteers were very crucial in actually bringing in this data back for us in a more comfortable and a more natural approach for us. And at the end of it, we were then able to evaluate the findings from this program and communicate that to the relevant stakeholders. And through this experience, we want to apply our learning into the various group of stakeholders that we work with. So on screen here, these are the most common stakeholders I believe like everybody here, we are aware of in how our volunteering programs, impact the people. For our service users, really is to ask ourselves, how does this program impact them? Does it meet their needs? For our staff, we stand in a place where all of you, I think you can also relate, right? We want to know whether how our volunteers are doing, what is their volunteering experience like, as well as to know whether this program is effective in meeting the needs of the clients. For our volunteers, it's quite straightforward. We want to know about their volunteering experience, right? Is it positive? How is it going for them? And where are their growth and developmental needs? And for our partners, we wanted to use the impact assessment survey as a common language that we could actually reach out to them to talk about the outcomes and the goals together before we embark on the project together, instead of having it as an afterthought. And leadership. So leadership is very important, and I'll explain that in the next slide. We want to convey impact to leadership and what's its effect on leadership. When we do impact assessment, what we essentially are doing is that we're actually gathering ground data. We're actually gathering, sorry, no worries. We'll let them settle that while you can focus on me. Okay, yeah, so we're actually gathering ground data that will help us to understand what's happening on the ground level in the community. And then this will bring up key important information that will help management make a more informed decision. At the same time, it will help to identify areas where we can actually pay more attention to or provide more resources in. At the same time, in our volunteer programs, when we think about accessing impact, what we're also doing is actually highlighting the importance of volunteer management in these programs. Then we can see where are the areas of support, adequate training that is required for both staff and volunteers in these programs that we have. And last but not least, we want to see impact measurement not just as a tool to measure volunteer roles and programs. It is also a way for us to assess the organization's broader focus areas. And before I close, I just want to ask everyone here 3 questions, okay? So if you can just respond back to me with a hand raised, and then everyone can just take a look at where we're at. Okay, so simple questions if you're comfortable raising out, okay? So first one is, how many of us here have been in the dating relationship? Confirm have one. I mean, I see so many people with the ring on their finger, right? Have, okay. Very good. Don't worry, this is not a matchmaking session. I won't make it into it, okay? But, so from that, right, how many of you have evolved that dating relationship into marriage? So basically, who are our married friends here, right? Yes, and definitely there's a lot here. Now, who of you who are married, you have been married for more than 5 years? Great, that's a lot of people, right? And actually what I wanted to close off with is that a lot of times if you think about volunteer management, it's very similar to an ongoing relationship with our partners. It is an ongoing partnership with them. And what's that similarity here is this. When we are dating, right, actually you all think about it, you are actually reviewing whether this person is good for me, whether I want to marry you or not, right? And then when you say that, yes, let's marry each other, you start to invest into the future together. So in Singapore, it's buying a house, maybe in future buying a car, starting a family. And that is that long-term investment. And let's take it back into volunteer management. So what does it mean for us when we think about, assessing impact in the volunteer management space? It is about when we want to assess the impact, a lot of times it starts with our volunteering programs. We want to see how to create a better volunteering experience in these programs, because the volunteers, when they have a better volunteering experience, they're more likely to feel valued, supported, and engaged. And then when they're engaged, when they feel connected, right, and a lot of times when we talk about volunteerism, we know that a large number of our volunteers also come from our corporate partners. And in this partnership, when they are engaged, it actually communicates to our external partners that we are dedicated to our cause, to our mission, which is why we're investing into these volunteers. And it results that our partners will actually have a better partnership experience with us. So at Care Corner, that's what we want to do. We want to always improve our volunteering experience that volunteers will have with us, so that partners will also feel secure that their volunteers have a good time with us and see the impact that their volunteers are also making on the ground. And with this, if you think about back to my example about marriage, right? And then when you feel that, hey, this person is for me, when we feel that, hey, there is a match, we start to think longer term, and we allow partners to have a conversation with us about investing into the future. And what does that look like? It will be our sustained long-term partnerships about what it can look like in the next few years to come, instead of a once-off partnership. And with that, with improving volunteer experience as the foundation of our as the first step into impact assessment, we want to use this to create more effective collaborations, resulting in a stronger, sustained long-term partnership, and therefore a stronger ecosystem for community impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Allinda, for that useful marriage analogy, and also for your insightful sharing on how SSAs can continuously review their volunteer impact measurement and use that data to inform program review. Last but not least, we have Mr. Leonard Tan, who leads the CSR efforts for UOB Group. His role involves developing and deploying strategies to uplift communities in need through social impact programs with a focus on art, children, and education. He brings with him over 25 years of experience in brand building, product and service marketing, and communications. Through his leadership of community stewardship and art initiatives, he drives successful social impact outcomes with effective partnerships and programs in the region. Mr. Leonard, please.
Morning, everyone. Good morning, Minister Masagos. Thank you, NCSS, for having me here. Good morning also to a few familiar faces and hopefully new friends to be made this morning. Thank you also to Sandra and Allinda for sharing with us all the insights that they had. Actually, the last 2 minutes I was taking marriage improvement notes from very, very important to hear from that. So, anyways. So my name is Leonard, and I oversee the corporate social responsibility efforts at UOB across the region. We are represented in multiple countries, and specifically in ASEAN, the 5 key countries of Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand. Okay, I'm going to stand here and avoid falling off the stage, okay? Okay, so I think I'd like to kind of give you a bit of an insight into who we are first, and there's a reason behind it. So ultimately, where all our efforts come from stem from our brand purpose. It's not random, it's not changing, it has to be very enduring. So ultimately, our brand purpose is to build the future of ASEAN. From there, our brand promise, which is right by you. So I'm sure you've heard of this. And it's really about being right by you as a customer, right by our communities, right by our colleagues. It's really right by everyone that we touch as a brand. And who we focus on are children. Ultimately, this is important for us to share because it ties in with what the brand purpose is, the future of ASEAN. So it's not a difficult equation. Future equals children, and children equals education. So that's really our focus. And with the partners that we worked here before with, you're very clear with what we're trying to do. We also have been a big proponent and advocate and patron of the arts. And we've included art into our CSR efforts because art has a purpose in education as well. So whilst there's the traditional learning, very left brain, the maths and science, they're getting ahead, really art offers an opportunity for children to build the right brain. We talk about creative thinking, creative problem solving. These are the areas where art that we see can help develop. So this is kind of the trinity of what we do. And how we do it, this fancy little 3 Ps thing that we have, philanthropy, participation, and partnership. So philanthropy is, we help support through funding, participation is volunteering, and partnerships, of course, partnering various entities, corporates, social service agencies, stat boards to get things going. So this really forms the basis of why we do what we do. Okay, so a lot of words here, but this is what I mentioned earlier. We really find that increasingly art is important, and many a time when we work with social agencies, having them know that we are heavily involved in art, they actually come to us for art-related programs and initiatives. And that's actually very encouraging because we see a commonality in our ideals on how education can be delivered, right? Okay, the 3 Ps and a few more words than I like to have, but really it's just an illustration of what we're doing. So philanthropy is providing financial support, and we do this through scholarships, bursaries, grants. We raise funds with our annual UOB run, and this is an activity culminating from 3 months of effort where the staff actually do all kinds of strange things to raise funds internally, externally, through partners, through customers. They do bowling challenges, they make coffee safely. No one's been hurt yet, sorry. We do fundraising at the start of the year with our commercial banking teams. I think we raised, for the Heartbeat Run this year, we've raised about $2 million for Singapore. For the fundraising with the commercial banking team, about $2.5 million. So really, it's not just about the bank giving money, although there's a lot of matching, that's easy, but it's important that we involve the staff in generating that fundraising. Right? So it builds a culture and a mindset. Participation, like I said, volunteering and a host of partners, many of you are here today, and partnerships as well. And I've noticed a friend from NGS as well. So this is what we do. But aside from that, we've also started this thing called Scan Hub about a dozen or so years ago, where we bring in employees with intellectual challenges to help us do digitization of the work that we've accumulated over the last many decades. So this gives them a good life and livelihood for what they're trying to do. And we've also started the Unlimited, which is a kind of a partnership platform where we involve our clients to help hire people with disabilities. So how do we measure ourselves? We've been talking a lot about impact measurement and how we look at the data. And actually, it's an ever-evolving kind of state, if you will. So the 3 areas we look at: how many individuals impacted. So this is a hard number, and we do track it. We also have average volunteer hours per employee. But this is also a derivative of what programs we have on the demand and supply side. And in terms of art, we also are going into more focus into the artists that we're uncovering. Again, art is not just for art's sake. When we uncover and build the art community, it actually spreads the ability to outreach to various groups, not just artists, through charity organizations, SSAs, to really push them to implement art as well. So I think some numbers just to share. In 2023, we had about 150 initiatives and programs for volunteering. So in 2024, we are really upping the ante and we've got about 250. So effectively, that's about one volunteer activity per day, every weekday. But this is something that we have to do to create the demand for volunteers while we go out and activate the supply of volunteers internally. So what we do internally, we kind of do it in a three-pronged approach to drive volunteerism. So top-down, and I don't mean that we force people to do volunteering. Top-down means we get our leaders to lead by example, to demonstrate their participation and not just participate, but oftentimes lead volunteer activities. Then in the middle level, we get our volunteer champions, the ones that we are very fervent, who are very fervent in volunteering, to persuade their friends to come and join volunteering activities. And within that, because there are many different complexities, layers of complexities of volunteering, we have those lower barrier to entry types, and we get a lot of first-time volunteers enjoying and participating in those. And then at the very bottom, we have all kinds of programs that I mentioned, even the UOB Heartbeat Run. That in itself is a volunteer program to come up together as a team, as a group, to just do good together. So really a multi-pronged approach to help build that demand and supply side. So with that, actually, this year, we've probably built 50% increase in unique volunteers at the bank in Singapore. So really, these are the kinds of things that we're trying to do as derivatives of these three KPIs. So, assessing the different opportunities and how to evaluate them, right? We ask ourselves a few questions. The first, when we come into contact with an opportunity, this is either proactively when we go out and outreach to potential partnerships or support, or when someone comes to us seeking a request to support, we ask ourselves, does this support the brand? This is our first filter, because if it doesn't, then I cannot tell the brand story, because that's part of my mission. Does this support children in need and their families? So after the brand, because based on the first slide that I shared with you, who is the first consideration? The second consideration, sorry. The second consideration is who we're going after, and can we keep telling that story based on that focus segment? What is the long-term value and outcome? We've never believed in actually doing things one time, because it's very resource intensive. It doesn't really build a long-term outcome, but we want to have a strong, good relationship. And that relationship, talking about relationships again, now sometimes has its ups and downs, right? So sometimes it's very intense because the opportunity is meeting very much with what we can do. Sometimes it goes into a lull and then must go on honeymoon again and then rebuild with new interests, right? So we do take a long-term view. Does this opportunity have the ability to scale? I think in terms of scaling, it's a win. We look for a win-win on both parts. Is it scaling to help more service users with the SSA? And is it scaling to allow more volunteers for us to participate, more contributions that we can make? So we keep that in mind as well. And do we have the resources to support meaningfully? Because sometimes they are very big dreams, sometimes they are not very deep pockets, right? So we have to match realistically, because there's nothing worse than making commitments that we can't keep. So we do take a very balanced approach to evaluating impact. Now, as Minister has mentioned, I think with the kit, with the discussions, with the forums that we have, there's a lot more formalization and structuring of how data is collected, how it is reported, to inform how we plan better to deliver better, more effectiveness and more efficiency. as this evolves, we're also evolving. So we certainly have regular reviews with SSAs, good conversations, like Allinda says, must continue talking. We get feedback from volunteers, and our volunteers are very outspoken. They tell us whether we want to hear from them or not, and they tell us repeatedly. So we do have access to a lot of input from them. And of course, the service users directly, but this is through the beneficiary groups. Sometimes we get a lot of, actually not sometimes, but oftentimes we get a lot of anecdotal input when our volunteers participate in opportunities, volunteering opportunities. And those actually, a lot of key moments come from those that we take quite wholeheartedly to learn and to be able to adjust how we do things. So, I mean, my previous slides, were about introducing what we do, how we think, but there's a reason for that, because I want to give you an insight into what goes on in the minds of the corporates as they evaluate opportunities that come before them, right? So, I think my first thing is really think and behave like a business. So slightly different from what Allinda is saying about, marriage, but principles are similar. I think if you appeal to the corporates in the right way, it's easier to connect. And once it's easier to connect, it's easier to then drive some kind of plan, right? So here are some like Leonard's 10 tips on how to appeal to corporates. Right? I think it's important to have a clear mission, what your mission is. Now, even if you have different areas that you cover, different areas that you oversee, be very clear what each of them are. Because people are people, attention span is short. When you're talking to anybody, not just corporates, the mind is thinking about other things. So how do you make it very salient and very succinct and have a clear mission for them to take away? If the mission is clear and the mission is not aligned, then you look at it and be flexible, if that's right for you. Have a story as well. I think oftentimes through the many meetings I've had with social agencies and charities and the like, sometimes there's a lot of data, sometimes there's a lot of stuff that they do, the history and the future and all that, but actually people remember stories. And if it hits people at the heart level, then that's where it really sticks. So and also be differentiated, because it's tough, I know, but what is your key selling value proposition? That's what, that's how business try and succeed, right? Offering a differentiated value proposition. Understand your target. So if UOB is your target, do a little bit of desktop research. You'll find that art, children, and education are our focus. And if you have an opportunity for us that really aligns for us to tell our story and strengthen where we want to build, I think that's fantastic. Because, I mean, unfortunately, there were some times when we go into a meeting and the potential partner is very, very, very fervent and strong and clear about what they want to sell, but they don't know what we need. So there has to be a good meeting of needs and what can be supplied. I think also understand what the job to be done is. The job to be done has three elements. Job to be done for the corporate. I think the first is functional. Okay, what is the job to be done functionally? How many volunteers you want to drive? How many hours? All that. So that is at least it forms the basis. The next is emotional. Does the bank want to gain and develop pride with the employee groups? What is maybe the CEO has some particular charity or some cause that he or she is very fond of. There's an emotional attachment to it. And understand and offer that. And then social. I mean, to be honest, when we do the work that we do share it out there. And so help us also be storytellers of this work that's to be done. I think if you can think about it in these three aspects, it really helps the conversation. Numbers and trends. I think corporates are very numbers oriented. I mean, being from a bank, that's what we live and die by, numbers. And I think, but it's meaningful numbers. You can splash Excel sheets and tables and worksheets. That doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't then mean anything. You have to really pull out key numbers and what it means to the corporate and really activate for them to feel, to engage, and then have some kind of action that comes from it. Have a plan of your own, and this is tied to the mission. I mean, you may have a mission, but if it doesn't translate into a plan, it's also very difficult. If there are moments where, in our discussions with particular groups, they're very clear with their mission, but they don't really have a plan, and they're looking to us to help them formulate a plan. That happens, and if we have experiences in those areas, we're happy to help, but it kind of delays the process. So I'm sure the good work that you do, there's always an urgency and an expedience that you want to deliver it. Having a plan definitely helps. Oh, okay. This is tied to the social aspect. If you can help generate positive news for the corporates, this is certainly greatly appreciated because really some of the KPIs, the softer KPIs corporates go after are kind of brand indexes and perception indexes, and these really help them build those as well. And listen, learn, and be realistic. Like I said, having very lofty plans sometimes is difficult to move forward with. And this is it could be a starting point that you have a very big plan, but when you listen and you learn and you understand from a corporate what their priorities are, it really helps to build a plan forward, because realistically, resources are always limited, right? And oftentimes, while we have good partners and focused partners, we tend to have 150 partners that we have to look after. Engage regularly. This is the constant communication that's quite obvious, intuitive. And finally, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to say, this is my mission, that is your mission. For now, it's not, the stars are not aligned. We can stop dating for now. But later we can explore again if things change, because things always do change, right? I want your slides later. Okay. It's okay to walk away and do the due diligence, put in the work, invest in the pitch, tell the story. But if it's not right, it's not right, because there's nothing worse than going into a bad relationship, right? So I think that's it for my top 10 in a few minutes. Thank you very much for your time. Okay, sorry, got one more slide. This is just a quick capture of a story. So we were involved in Project V, and Project V is really a sustained volunteering pilot from last year, and we partnered with FaithX. FaithX is an after-school care facility. There are about 30 kids over 2 locations. So whilst we were volunteering 2-3 times a week to help them with their homework, which is actually not easy, okay? Maths and science are primary 6. Good luck to us all, right? So while we're helping them, we realized that a lot of them came and said, we need to do this online work. I'm like, how do you do this online work? So Siva, for example, he says he shares one phone with 3 siblings or 2 siblings to do this homework. And we realized, I think there's a lot more we can do. So what started out as a project pilot where we help at one level, we realized that we can do more. So this is an example of our attitude and culture towards sustained volunteerism. And then we donated about 30 laptops to them that they can do their online homework, which is more and more prevalent these days. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Leonard, for your insightful sharing from a corporate point of view on the impact considerations when partnering with SSAs. So I hope everyone has captured the 10 tips and the dating analogy. Okay, now I would like to invite all our speakers up on stage for the panel sharing segment. This segment will be moderated by Mr. Brian Chung, a principal consultant with the Impact and Strategic team at Impact. He leads diverse consultancy projects with government ministries, agencies, philanthropic foundations, and social organizations in Singapore and beyond. He also led the Impact project team in developing the Volunteer Impact Measurement Kit. So I would like to invite the panelists on stage.
Right, thank you so much for your presentation. It was a wonderful presentation we have heard from the three of you, and it also set the stage for our discussion today. It's really about volunteer impact measurement. In your presentation earlier on, you have talked about the importance of measuring volunteer impact. Definitely has helped to shape not just the program and services in your agencies, but also thinking about how to make decisions at the strategic level. So I'm going to start with a few questions. I'll start with Sandra and Allinda first. So how did the findings from the volunteer impact measurements help to shape your organization volunteer involvement strategy? Sandra?
Hello. Yeah, so for us, we really felt that the findings and the data helped us to really relook at how we wanted to get more volunteers. In fact, we actually then started to see our volunteers as beneficiaries as well, because they were benefiting in terms of self-care, in terms of psychological well-being. And so in our head, we started to think of what can we do for beneficiaries. And when we thought that way, then we realized that, hey, our programs, we need to adjust so that when a volunteer delivers them, he's actually benefiting from them while he's giving, the service to someone else. So that enabled us to shift the way in which we think. So that was one of it.
Lovely. I think there's something for us to take away as well, right? Volunteers are also our beneficiaries, and through the program that Equals create, it's definitely benefiting them a lot. Allinda?
Yeah, so for us, like what I mentioned just now, when we are able to get the data on the ground, we understand the community needs better, then it actually helps to surface up to see whether the focus areas that we are targeting are real needs on the ground. And if so, then where are the needs surfacing? Because when we say that we want to support like children, families in breaking cycles, what is it that we want to break here? And then these data can actually offer us more insights to the areas that we can focus on, whether it's in our focus areas in Care Corner.
Wonderful. And I really appreciate the team from Care Corner and Equal, together with the rest of the SSU who participate in the VMCD, to help us shape the volunteer impact measurement kit that we have launched today. And Leonard, lovely sharing about the 3P strategy itself. Can you give us an idea, how does the data from the measurement that you mentioned, how does it shape a UOB Group 3P strategy?
So hello. Thanks. So the data really, the value of the data comes in three ways. One is to do the necessary reporting. So that's a fundamental, because we have sustainability reports, annual reports. So that forms the very basis. But that's a quantitative requirement. The qualitative requirement is really around efficiency and effectiveness. It helps us be better at understanding and then assessing where we are, what we should do, what we shouldn't do anymore. And finally, I think we really want to look at using the data to tell the story to our people. Because if we can deliver a story around how we're growing, how we are growing in terms of our support for the various partners that we have, how we are generating more volunteers, it's actually kind of an emotional motivation for our own people to take part and to deliver more for us.
And I really appreciate how the three of you talked about not just qualitative data. I think in a lot of our communication, I've seen many annual reports, we talk about the stories of our volunteers. I think those are wonderful stories to tell and communicate and engage your public, but it's also important to have some quantitative one to sort of help shape the direction forward, and that's really helpful for us to know. And hopefully the impact measurement, volunteer impact measurement kit that we have produced will help you in this process as well. well. We know in our project itself, many of the agencies are in different stage of measuring volunteer impact. Some are already in the process of understanding what is impact measurement in the first place. Some are piloting impact measurement. Some are already fully integrating the impact measurement in different work streams in their organizations. And I'm sure many in the audience would like to hear from the three of you, what are some of the key success factors in measuring the impact of volunteers? It's not easy, I must say, it's a starting phase, but I think it's a good space for us to hear from the three of you. Maybe I'll start from Allinda, right? So what is one or two key success factors that you think have enabled the volunteer impact measurement that you have done with us?
So for us at Care Corner, we always believe in getting the organization ready for volunteers. So instead of saying honestly for us, I would say that one thing for us is actually creating a volunteer-friendly organization within the team, across the organization among the staff. Because when your staff are ready, when your colleagues know how to engage with volunteers, actually the next step in administering these surveys are but an admin process that can be easily implemented in once the culture is set.
Yeah, so it is about the rapport you already have with the volunteers. In your presentation, you mentioned about getting volunteers to be involved in translating the questions that we have actually designed in the toolkit itself. Can you say a bit more about that?
So in the project, we actually have recurring volunteers who came back to join us. They actually knew the ground very well. They also knew the seniors. They would know when to get the seniors at home, and we have new volunteers. So we actually tap on the volunteer leaders to communicate the heart of the project, and then also they will actually go through the questions together first, and then ask it as part of their routine, like check-in with the volunteers.
Right. This is how important it is sometimes to involve the volunteers in the design implementation as well. Sandra, share with us what some key success factor you've seen in your implementation.
A key success factor is a very good volunteer manager, which we have in the form of Melissa. And I'll share with you some tips and tricks that she does. So there was one day when I came to office and there were a lot of packet drinks at her table. Like behind her, she bought a shelf, then a lot of packet drinks. I wonder why she buys so many packet drinks, for what? And realized that actually she got all these packet drinks to treat the volunteers. When they finish their volunteering, she'll carry all her packet drinks, put over there, and then ask them to do the survey at the same time. At the same time, she'll explain to them why they need to do the survey. Why is it important for Equal? Why is it important for them? It's also for them to understand why are they volunteering in Equal. And I think, a very simple gesture like that actually is very powerful, because most of the time after volunteering, a lot of our volunteers just want to just want to run off to their next activity. But she engages them right to the end, treats them, and then of course gives them packet drinks.
Right.
We need to get a sponsorship from Yos after this.
Right. So some incentives will help. Packet dream seems to be very helpful. I'm sure interaction with the horses also is a very wonderful experience as well. And I guess you also raised an important point about getting the volunteer to understand the objective of doing the measurement itself and how this can impact the program, not just themselves but also the organization. So the communication of objective is critical here. Lionel, what about you? What is one success factor that you think that has enabled EOB Group to measure the impact of your programs?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I think that the data really helps and informs different decision making. I think to elaborate on that, and I'll talk about the employee engagement part, right? So, as far as volunteers and potential volunteers, we've got about 11,000 employees in Singapore. We're trying to convert as many of them. There's a concept that we're trying to drive called everyone a volunteer. And the elaboration of that is there's no reason why everyone can't be a volunteer at least once. Right? So keeping that in mind, this whole group of 11,000, it's a bit of a pyramid. You have those at the tip of the pyramid who are very fervent. So for example, next week we are celebrating our Employee Volunteer Appreciation Day. So last year, as an example, our top volunteer volunteered for 37.5 hours for the year. And we give 3 days of volunteer leave. So this person did more than the volunteer leave available. So that's last year. So this year, as I was sharing, we're trying to do more programs, up to 250 this year. The top volunteer is volunteering for 140.5 hours. So that's quite a vertical climb. And the second one, so top is 140.5, the second is 140. Right, so it's a very, but they don't know this. They don't know this. We do the evaluation behind, and we invite them. Then we tell them. Right. So this is really them doing it out of their heart. Right. So that's at the top. But at the same time, there's the middle who are either have done it once and need a lot more motivation, or the bottom who have never done it before. So with the data that we have in terms of surveys from employees, for example, we get a sense of the programs that we do, the initiatives that we do. Is it relevant and relatable to them? Is this something that they will want to do more of or less of? And all these data points, the group size, these little inputs and insights really help us to decide how to design initiatives that help employees participate more and engage more. Right?
I think this is really helpful insights for us to understand that there are obviously employers who are quote unquote competitive, right? They want to achieve larger volunteer numbers, but they also a large middle band that will help by some motivation and some clarity in what they are doing. So that's really helpful, and this is really related to the third questions I have for the team here today. We are actually seeing increased interest and involvement of corporations partnering with SSAs in volunteering programs. And many of these partnerships are working towards and all creating social impact collectively. We know that a volunteer impact measurement is one way to assess whether the partnership has achieved its intended social impact itself. So I'm going to start with you. For UOB, how does the volunteer impact measurement itself helps your organization achieve a more mutually benefiting partnership?
So I think the first thing to note is we can't do the work that we do alone. We really need the partners. We really need your ideas. We really need your on-the-ground efforts to share with us, to ignite us, to inspire us to participate. Right. So for us to have that first trigger, and for us to have that ability to then plan ahead, it really takes persuasion. And the persuasion comes foremostly with data. And Gary can tell you, we've been exploring some opportunities, and recently UOB made a donation to Care Corner. And this is predicated on, as I was mentioning earlier, a good meeting of the minds. I think they came with an idea and a concept that really appealed to us in terms of being able to have a multiplier effect to go out to reach and outreach to beneficiary groups and service users. It had a tinge of technology that we can tell an innovation story about. Right, so all these were predicated on ideas that come from data. And this data really helps to form that pitch and that persuasion to help us make the decision. And I think we've arrived at a good point, and then we're going to start running from here.
And I'm going to ask you to say a bit more. The point you made earlier on is definitely helping to at the buy-in at the senior management level. But often we also see that there might be some persuasion required at the staff level itself. How does this data help you or your team in pursuing the volunteering among your members?
So actually, you raised a very good point. The first half of it is about upselling to the bosses. I think we then have whatever is the story or the pitch that the potential partner has for us. We have to kind of translate it into management speak in a very short and concise way to get approval to do it. And as a bank, I'll speak for banks, data is key. Numbers form the foundation, right? Then in terms of our employees, like I said, really the mountain to climb to get more volunteers is appealing to them at the emotional level and at the mind level, right? So we do both, right? From an emotional level, we tell the stories of past, present, of all these wonderful programs that we've done. We let our other volunteers share about their experiences, how positive they are, but it is coupled with data. So, and it can be quite moving in unexpected ways. So a couple of weeks ago, we worked with a Mandai Wildlife Group for the first time. And for the first time, we had 200 UOB volunteers partnering them to take 1,000 beneficiaries or service users from various organizations to the bird paradise. It's quite a big endeavor, but when people hear about it, after the fact that it happened, when people heard about it, when staff heard, they're like, wow, when's the next one? Right? So there's this attraction to big numbers, to magnificent stories, and we try and use those to tell that story as well. Yeah.
Right. So storytelling is a critical part in engaging your own employees into volunteering. Right. Lovely. Allinda, what is some ways that you think volunteer impact measurement has actually helped to create mutually benefiting, and maybe say a bit more about how to sustain it as well, not just benefiting but also sustaining it?
Yeah. So for us, it's so in our team, right? We have 5 guiding principles. Right, and the first one is that in every volunteering opportunity and program, it must be client-centric. Yeah, because if we're unable to meet the needs of the clients, then we are definitely not able to provide the impact on the clients to our partners. So that's the first. And the second one is actually very important for both partners, which is actually it must be a win-win partnership. Yeah. So considering what is our win is what really serving the clients, and are there any other outcomes that actually we have thought about that partners can actually come in and support us on, but of course that has to be communicated as well. And then the other one is actually what is the win for the partner that they are looking at. So maybe I'll just share like one example that we have. As part of Project V, we are partnering with Calanova, and they are actually participating in one of our programs called Mindful Steps. So in Mindful Steps, it's actually bringing the seniors around the community on a 2 km walk, and then they will do cognitive activities. So that's for like cognitive activities, and then the volunteers will come in. So in this conversation, it's really asking ourselves like, what are the needs of the clients here? We actually need people, and also maybe of the organization. We need people to come in on a large scale every single, like twice a week, to actually bring these clients out, because the staff alone can't bring 20 seniors out. So when there isn't enough volunteers, we actually can't go out. Right, and we have corporates who actually want to come in large numbers, who wants to do this, and then to join in activities that are simple, that they don't have to plan for. Yeah, so, in a lot of conversations, that's why I say dating, right? Because you really need to, like, go and have conversations. And then from there, we realize that, okay, like, this is a win, and it does meet the needs of the clients. Yeah, so to date, like, they have actually been supporting every single month and bringing these clients out.
Right, so your matchmaking process is with your beneficiaries and your volunteers, right? Lovely. And Sandra, what about you? What do you think has been helpful?
Maybe I can take this question in another way, in how we have been working with corporates. So to give one example, we work very closely with Microsoft, And I think what we like about their approach is that they wanted like the full package, not just volunteering, but they wanted a lunch and learn session. So we did like a Zoom where everybody who was available tuned in and we shared with them. We even did a live stream of what it's like in the stable. And then when they came down to the stable, of course, they got their hands dirty. Some of them experienced doing different programs. But they also then after that did their micro fundraiser for Equal. And I think doing it like that really, enabled them to learn what Equal was doing, experience, and then to give back. But I suppose we also see another trend. I think it could be encouraging to some extent, also worrying to some extent, because the corporates that we are talking to now, a lot of them are actually asking, okay, how many volunteers can you take? And then they will say, if you can take 100 volunteers, we can give you X amount for 100 volunteers. So they're in a way tying a price tag to a volunteer. In a way buying volunteer hours, but at the same time, that's the way how the bank or the corporates are budgeting. I think we experienced this with a few corporates, and I think to a great extent we try to make it happen if we can, because we also want to expose ourselves. Being a very young charity that's only 9 years old, we want to expose ourselves to more corporates. But at the same time, I think having to involve, for instance, a group of 50 volunteers, a group of 100 volunteers, sometimes can be overwhelming for us. And for beneficiaries as well. I think that's a part that we always try to balance, because some of the corporates will say, we can give you funds for a program, so they can give, let's say, 20K, but we must involve, let's say, 100 volunteers in a particular program. So I think that's the trend that we are seeing. We're not too sure whether it's the right way to go, and what is the strain that we put on the social service sector if this goes on.
Right. So maybe Sandra, I ask you another question related to what we have actually launched today. How would then the volunteer impact measurement kit help Equal shape that plan moving forward? Because now you're sort of experimenting with different corporations. How does it help you in your journey forward?
Yeah, so how the tool has helped us is to always include elements of mental health into our programs. When the volunteers come, we actually bring them into the stable, let them have an up-close and personal experience with the horses, like what we would do with our beneficiaries. We also encourage them to do mindfulness breathing with our horses. When they feel actually the heartbeat of a horse, which is actually slower than our human heartbeat. Like my heartbeat is very fast now. But when there's a horse, the draw of the horse heartbeat, which is really slower than ours already, actually slows down and actually pulls down and slows down the pace of our heart. When they actually leave the stable, they go back to our workplace and all that, they actually, our beneficiaries, our volunteers, they actually remember the sensation of what is it like to breathe along with a horse. And they believe that they can always practice. We always encourage them that they can do mindfulness breathing wherever they are.
Right, so even just volunteering itself can help the mental wellness of your corporate volunteers as well, right? So that would be something that Equal will focus on measuring, as I would imagine.
Yes, because we also realize that they want to become advocates of the work that we do, and they also want to be able to shout about us, benefit, and also to learn more. And being able to share that knowledge, for us to impart that knowledge to them, for them to impart that knowledge to others, is actually for us really a good cycle.
Lovely. Allinda, I'm going to ask you this particular point that you raised when we were implementing the volunteer impact measurement itself. You raised that it is actually something that you can use in your initial phase of engaging with the corporates. Can you say a bit more about that experience?
So when we look at the volunteer impact measurement kit, it is really a tool that I think NCSS has developed for the sector. So it's not a prescription, right? We don't have to take it and then we go step by step. So it's actually understanding what is inside this kit, and also then recognizing so question to all the colleagues here, right, is are we clear about what are the outcomes that we also hope to see for our programs? Then we use this kit to shape also the outcomes such that when we are actually looking at engaging with a new partner, we can also then use the same language that we want to see at the end, right at the beginning. Yeah, so for example, like, you know, we have the corporate volunteering with us, and we want to ask them, right, how has the involvement of their corporate volunteers, right, increased the sense of connection, you know, and then we can use some of these questions as well, and then we can check in with our corporate partners where we are aligned on the same page. And if it's not, then the toolkit has other things that you could tap on that you could come prepared with. Yeah, so it's actually using it as a tool right from the beginning, and then preparing for the conversation with our corporates.
Right, so it's going to be one of the tools that you can use in your corporate engagement right from the start. This is sort of related to the questions that we are starting to see to come through. Well, some of you are already sending in the questions. You can continue to scan the QR code that goes on the Slido, and we will select some of the questions to ask to the panel. So whether you use the first question, the person didn't state your name and organization, that's fine. The question is maybe for Sandra and Allinda, right? How can SSA go about using the volunteer impact measurement kit so that the impact assessment is not an afterthought? I mean, we heard earlier on shared by Esther that the resource is a common challenge in SSA, so sometimes it does mix impact measurement an afterthought. So from your own experience, moving forward, how do you think it will not be an afterthought and will be incorporated into your program design and implementation?
For us, we see the tool actually as a very easy plug and play. You know, we don't have to come up with our own surveys. You know, we don't have to come up with our own questions. Everything, you know, is, you know, they fill up the survey, everything is generated, the data is back end. I think, you know, like same with other small and medium SSAs, you probably only have half or one volunteer manager. So we're lucky, you know, we used to have 0.25 of a volunteer manager a few years ago, but in the past 1-2 years, we managed to have a full-time volunteer manager. She knows that, you know, she is only one woman, but we know that she's not a one-woman show. And we make it very intentional that, you know, she's supported by the entire organization in what she does. And, you know, in terms of using this kit, it's not just her, you know, pushing this out, but the rest of the team also valuing and knowing what this tool is and why is it important, you know, for us to actually utilize it. So for instance, you know, it's not just, you know, Melissa who's interacting with the volunteers, but the entire team. When the volunteers go to the stable, when they take care of the horses, or when they actually go for the programs, they're interacting with our stable hands, they're interacting with our grooms, they're interacting with our program instructors. They all become part of the process, and they know that, you know, we are here to actually look after, you know, the volunteers, like they are angels on earth, and, you know, and we're here to actually, you know, be there for them, not just to give them something to, not just to take, you know, from them. And I think, you know, in that sense, the impact management tool, you know, it's very important to us. And I think ever since we implemented it, we've been a lot more intentional in terms of our process. You know, I think once you embark on it, you know, you realize that it becomes, you know, integrated into your approach for volunteers.
Right, so wonderful. And I guess it's also thinking about how to get buy-in from your internal stakeholders as well. So I'm going to ask Allinda, your next question itself is that what advice can you give to engage your own program colleagues about impact measurement and the outcome?
I love what Sandra said about it. Like, eventually the goal is that it will become a more integrated approach. I think that is where we all want to get to. In terms of like how then do we share it with our colleagues, right? Then if I can go back to my earlier point about getting your organization ready, like volunteer ready, and that volunteer-friendly culture of volunteering in the organization, then my question back, it will be to whoever is asking this, right, is that are there needs of your staff or colleagues at the program level that they actually need help with in terms of volunteer management? Because likely they have all these needs that are not met, and they are already struggling with even maybe having a good volunteering experience, or not knowing how to structure a program, or maybe even the basics of orientation and not knowing what to put in there. I mean, we have very new staff sometimes, right? So when we are able to meet that need, I think then it opens up spaces for us to have other conversations with them about outcomes. It's really like you're telling like a kid to it's actually telling a kid to like jump, reach 180 cm or something like that. But actually they are not able to when they are like 100 cm, and then they can only jump like 10 cm all the time. Yeah, and then when that happens, so a very quick example will be we also had that, and then in meeting the needs of like the volunteer registration at the center. So it's also with the same program, Mindful Steps, and then we as we help them with the volunteer registration, seeing them all the time, right? Slowly, right, I started to, what if everybody you think about, if you can measure the volunteer data at the end of this program. And then you can actually share with your next corporate partner that you actually engage this number of corporate volunteers, this number of hours, how many seniors. How does that sound for you? So that's when my colleagues actually said, "Oh, it sounds very good." Then, but we didn't start anything yet, actually. Yeah. So all the way until they were ready, their processes were all stable. Then when we broached the topic, right, they were more than ready to say like, "Let's do it." Yeah.
Right, so it sounded like you do have to assist your colleague in managing volunteers first, start planting the seed about measuring outcome before you can get them to jump at that height you're talking about. Really sounds like a process of matchmaking, right? Right, so maybe for Lionel, for UOB itself, how did your team carve out regular time for employees to volunteer? Right, you mentioned earlier on that the volunteers go down 2 to 3 times a week to help children with homework. How does UOB then justify this effort internally?
Thanks for the question. So I think there are a few different layers to this. I think, first of all, there is a culture of volunteerism. So at a corporate level, the corporate culture is, yes, please go and do volunteerism, right? And that's supported by 3 days of volunteer leave that employees can take, right? So that's the first. The second is, based on our mission to do kind of sustained volunteerism, the example that I shared with FaithX, 2 to 3 times a week of homework, it's only one example of several volunteer programs that we do multiple times a month, sometimes multiple times a week. They range in complexities. So on one closer to the extreme is homework time, because that's a little bit more what we would term as skilled volunteerism, because you have to know how to engage a child and then how to deliver or share or teach and help with the homework. The reality is we won't always have the same volunteer coming to the same volunteer activity. They certainly do try, and we certainly do encourage, but it's not something that we force or push down onto volunteers. So there would be a varied range of people coming to do the volunteer work. So that's the more that's the example of the more complex or high involvement type of volunteerism. There's another type which is very low complexity. Unpacking vegetables from hotels and restaurants that they don't use, but still edible, ugly vegetables, right? And repacking them for senior citizens or underserved communities. That's very low complexity, and that one you don't need specific people to be the same volunteer to do it all the time. So we don't impose strict rules around it. We do encourage certain attributes as much as possible to volunteer for the same type, so that you increase your own skill, you improve familiarity with the service users and all that. But I think we have an understanding with the SSAs or the organizations we partner with that is not always an absolute reality that we can deliver.
Right. So on the point that you say that the volunteer will go to the child's place to do tutoring, to do homework itself, how do you then encourage the same volunteer, the same employee to keep doing the same volunteering program?
So we engage them typically at the first time they do that volunteering. I think it's difficult to persuade them before it happens. So once they have that experience, they know what it entails. It's something that they can commit to. It's something that's relatable to them. We tell them, hey, now that we've gone through day 01, can you, for the next volunteering activities, can you sign up for the next one? And some of them do, some of them don't, and it's okay either way, because we've already had this discussion with the organization that's the reality.
Right. So also about setting the expectation
That's
at the first point, right? Right. So we're going to get some questions from the floor. We know that some of you have already submitted those questions from Slido. We're going to invite you to ask the question directly from the floor. Anyone? Questions that you have asked in Slido that we haven't raised yet? All very slow, all very comfortable in your seat. Anyone have raised a question in the Slido that you would like to verbalize it right now? There we are.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm Andrew from, maybe I shouldn't say my organization's name first. Yeah, I asked the question pertaining to corporate volunteerism and the involvement of corporate volunteers in any form of way will always be valuable and useful for the SSAs. And I'm happy that UOB, being the enlightened one, is doing it in a very sustainable manner. But there are many others who are coming for group photograph, corporate team building, free corporate team building, effectively adding to the cost of the SSA running a particular event. I just thought, would there be any advice from UOB in how SSA can address such requests? Yep, thanks.
Thank you for the question. So this is indeed a challenging one that a lot of SSAs face. And I think maybe some suggestions on a couple of things you can do. One is a bit of sniffing, right? A little sleuthing and sniffing. You go and find out what they've been doing, either directly or indirectly. If you find out on their social media that their programs are very just large group pictures and very few interaction types, then there are some indications there. So that's kind of like public domain information available type things. Then talk to them. Have them tell you, again, all those things, like what their mission is, what they're up to, what they're doing. It will be very quickly revealed what their intention is. And again, if their intention is amiss or not aligned, walk away. Right? So, but you must have the gumption to also walk away, because sometimes you just need the volunteers. And I know, to add on to the complexity, you have corporates who say they'll volunteer and last minute all drop out. Right? Very painful. And it happens for various reasons, some known, some good, some bad, but it happens. You want to minimize that, and the more you know about them, the more you know about their track record, the more that you know about their resources and their commitment level, the more you can mitigate such issues.
Right, the part of your 10 tips from Leonard, right? I think we have one question going to come from Allinda from Children Cancer Foundation. Yes. Yes.
I think this question is also from Mr. Leonard Tan. Just curious about the 5 questions that you asked. How do you determine, or what are the assessment criteria you use to determine whether the SSA opportunities strengthen your branding?
Yeah, so I think for us, and it's specific to us, right? I won't represent any other corporates. Like I said, the first one is the brand. Does it help tell our story? So, and the second one is about the segment we're going after, which is supporting children. Because if we want to build the future of ASEAN, like I said, the equation is quite intuitive: children, and then future children education. Sometimes the SSAs come to us and the segment is not something we'll focus on. It could be about adult learning, for example. So there's education in there, but it's not really children. So we will ask them, can you expand your program? Can you modify what you have in terms of adult learning and include some children, or at least some youth, because our story is about building the future. If they say can, okay, great, let's explore. If they say cannot, then let's try again next time. Yeah. So that's part of the evaluation process. And we are quite strict about it, to be honest, because resources are limited. Any kind of dilution of strategy is dilution of impact. Yeah.
I think the audience is slowly warming up and there are more questions coming in from Slido. Should we take one question from the floor? Yep.
Hi, I'm Melissa here from BABES Pregnancy Crisis Support, an agency supporting pregnant teens and preventing unplanned pregnancies. So my question is on 2 areas of contribution. So sometimes, I mean, the honest fact is that most charity will require funds, so fundraising. So how are we looking at volunteers also converting to donors? Yeah, is there an area of measurement that maybe at the SSA level or even at the corporate side, do you look at staff also contributing? Is there an area of measurement? And probably if you all could share your strategies on that. Yeah.
I'll jump in first. So in terms of planning to do philanthropic work, like donations and all that, I understand, first of all, when their financial year is. All right. Then, because 4 to 6 months before that is when they are starting to evaluate how their year went and then how they're going to plan for the next financial year. So that's an important one, because if the FY it starts on April 1st and you go knocking on their door April 2nd, you got to wait about a year before anything happens. So you don't want that. So a bit of sniffing and sleuthing. In terms of, that's at a corporate level. In terms of at the employee activation and engagement level, you can come to the corporates and say maybe there's a departmental program that you have, and it could be a number of ideas, and say, okay, this involves some kind of activity, some kind of service user engagement, but also we're seeking some smaller donations. In this case, because it's out of planning cycle budgets, the flexibility to do big donations tends to be tougher. So if you can have a total package and not just jump in, oh, we want funding for this. Tell the whole story and appeal to them. Sometimes it's tough. They don't have the funds, but they will squeeze something else to drop it in here.
I think that's a wonderful question. I mean, just apart from the corporate partnership itself, which will convert volunteering into cash donations, I think internationally we've also seen that when volunteers volunteer with you, they're also aligned with your social cause and missions, and more likely they're also willing to be donors for you, or also be champions for donors from their own corporates as well.
Have a great reason. Have a great reason.
Right. So I'm going to get Sandra and Allinda answer the last questions that we have on the Slido itself. How does organization measure impact for ad hoc or once-off volunteer program?
We will still use the same tool. At least, there's a basis of comparison, but we probably will segregate the information, the data, as to which is a longer-term volunteer and what is a one-time volunteer. And I think if those results show that one-time volunteer actually doesn't have a lot of impact, then it will make us rethink whether one-time volunteering is something that our organization should commit to. I believe that's what we will do.
Right, okay.
Maybe if I can ask the fellow colleagues here, so for our SSA's colleagues, right, how many of us here currently actually are implementing surveys or volunteer feedback forms after your once-off programs? Maybe just show of hands. Yeah, okay, maybe you all can just take a look around at some of them. Because, I mean, the truth is the panel ends like in maybe 5 minutes or so. But we do have a lot of other friends like in the sector who are already also on this journey of implementing that. And I think we sit among very rich experiences in this room, and we can also approach some of these colleagues like after to have a conversation. For us, it's implementing it straight after the volunteering activity to catch them then, because a lot of times we realize that after that moment, like they leave, right? They won't touch it already. Your return rate of feedback form is almost at 10% or none. Yeah, so really right after they're done, right, you don't hold them back. You hold them back, right, until every single one of them finish, and then you say goodbye.
It's like restaurant reviews. Sir, this is your bill.
And then
Can
I'm
you
like, give a dessert, right?
Give the dessert.
Yes.
That will be the exact tips we're going to use for today's session as well. My very last question to the three of you, right? I think many in the audience will get really excited about volunteer impact measurement right now after hearing how it has benefited you, Equals, and Care Corner, and also how it is important to corporates like UOB Group itself. What will be one key learning point that you want to share with our audience today so that they will plant the seed in their mind and proceed with measurement in a bit?
So I think measurement is a larger component of, ultimately, data for data's sake is useless. I mean, measurement is a function of trying to inform you to get better effectiveness and better efficiencies. But I'll go back to my point about think of yourself as a business pitching to a business. And if you can come with that position, I think, and you're organized and you have a good story to tell, I think that credibility already sets a very high bar, and they're all ears. If you come and you don't have anything to share, and I'm just being very extreme, you're just saying, okay, this is what we're trying to, number of people are trying to help, this is the money I have, I'm asking for, it's not going to go very far. So think of yourself as a business appealing to another business.
Right, so almost ready with some form of report card when you engage a corporate. Allinda?
For me, it would be to think of, so if you remember my very last slide, and then, I mean, you have been making fun of me of the marriage thing, right? I mean, so if you can just think about, like, if we start with improving our volunteering experiences again, if whenever we create a positive volunteering experience, and you know how maybe you eat at a restaurant and it was so good, the service was so good, and you just want to come back. Right, that's the same thing that we want to create within our volunteering opportunities, whatever that means for the volunteers, with our beneficiaries. And when that experience is so good, they can't help but they want to come back to give again. Yeah, and really that will help to create the partnership in a sustained long-term partnership in time to come.
For Equal, this is something that I've discussed with Kai, with Mel, and all that, and we want to see what is our vision of volunteering in Equal. And I would say we want it to be a shift from VM to VM, from a volunteer management to volunteer movement. And we believe that a volunteer movement can only happen if there are quality volunteering experiences that we are giving to our volunteers. So doing all the impact measurement and understanding how they think, their motivations and all that will really empower us to actually give them a more enriching volunteering experience with Equal.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Sandra, Allinda, and Leonard, for joining us and how we can do impact measurement better, right? So thank you so much again for your insights.